Honeyed light, thick as syrup, filtered through the venerable oak as Ranger Jones, clipboard tucked tight, surveyed the scene. A miniature figure was dwarfed by the tree's roots, practically swallowed by the earth. Boots crunching softly on the gravel path, Jones approached. "Hey there, little guy," he called, gentleness coloring his tone. The boy remained motionless, clutching a worn teddy bear, a single button eye dangling like a loose tooth. Kneeling, Jones kept his movements deliberate. The child couldn't have been more than 6. A mop of brown hair obscured much of his face, and his clothes swam on him. Dirt streaked his cheeks, and a reservoir of tears trembled in his eyes as he finally looked up. "Lost, are we?" Jones inquired softly. A nod, and a lone tear escaped, carving a clean path through the grime. "What's your name?" A raspy whisper. "Leo." Jones contacted dispatch, reporting a foundling. He stayed put, offering the boy a granola bar and a comforting presence. Leo nibbled tentatively, his fingers locked around the teddy's plush form. 20 minutes crawled by before a patrol car crunched to a halt, disgorging Officer Miller. Miller possessed an innate rapport with children, an easy empathy. He lowered himself beside Leo, his expression open and soothing. "Hi, Leo," Miller greeted him, voice calm and level. "Ranger Jones here tells me you're a bit turned around." Leo simply stared at his scuffed shoes. Miller noted the boy's attire simple, yet showing wear, the oversized coat hinting at hand-me-downs. He exchanged a significant glance with Jones. A depressingly familiar tableau. "Do you know your address, Leo? Or maybe a phone number?" A shake of the head. I can't remember." Another shared look. The child's reticence, coupled with his appearance, sketched a bleak picture. Another case of potential neglect they both suspected. Another young life adrift. Miller produced a notepad and pen. "Okay, Leo, no problem. We'll sort it out. Can you tell me your last name?" A hesitation, then a mumbled, "Maxwell." "Maxwell," Miller repeated, scribbling it down. "And where do you live, Leo? Anything you can remember about your house?" Leo's gaze lifted, his eyes suddenly alight with an almost feverish intensity. "I live in a castle," he declared, his small voice surprisingly forceful. "A castle made of stories." Miller's brow furrowed. The boy was clearly disoriented, perhaps even traumatized. He shot a questioning glance at Jones, receiving a weary shrug in return. Miller sighed inwardly. This promised to be a protracted evening. He needed to get the boy to the station, cleaned up, and start piecing together the fragments of his life. Rising, he extended a hand to Leo. "Come on, Leo," he urged gently. "Let's take a ride. We'll figure out how to get you home." Small fingers, surprisingly firm, grasped his. As they headed towards the cruiser, Leo glanced back at the ancient oak, a fleeting, ambiguous expression in his eyes. The teddy bear remained his steadfast companion, its lone button eye fixed on the gathering dusk. A gentle interrogation officer Miller settled onto one knee, carefully placing the juice box on the time-worn table. "Apple. Figured you might like it. My little girl's a fan." He refrained from pushing it forward, presenting it like a peace offering. Drawing up a chair, he faced the boy, conscious of maintaining personal space. The sterile room, all bleak concrete, felt utterly wrong for a kid. His request for a softer setting was likely buried in paperwork. "Leo, isn't it? I'm Officer Miller. Dave, if you prefer." A reassuring smile played on his lips. "We just want to get a handle on what happened. You seemed disoriented this morning." Leo's gaze, the color of rain-slicked cobblestones, darted to the juice, then back. He clutched a well-loved book, its spine cracked, his knuckles bone-white. Silence hung heavy. Dave understood the delicate dance. Coercion was useless with children. Patience was the only key. He relaxed his posture, striving to appear less intimidating. "It's all right to feel scared, Leo. We're here to help you." A deliberate pause amplified the quiet. "Is there anyone you'd like us to contact? Mom? Dad? Your grandma?" a nearly imperceptible shake of the head. Understood, Dave responded softly. Perhaps you could tell me, what prompted you to leave this morning? Was everything all right at home? Leo's hesitation was palpable, his lower lip quivering. A furtive glance towards the door, then back at Dave revealed a glimmer of fervent expectation. He parted his lips, then closed them. An internal battle waged in silence. It's difficult to put into words, he murmured, his voice a dry rasp. Finally, he reached for the juice, struggling to pierce the foil with the straw. Dave offered a nod of encouragement. Take all the time you need. Whatever you need to say, we're listening. Leo sipped, his eyes riveted to the table's surface. There's a specter. Dave's brow furrowed, already mentally flagging the parent's background for further scrutiny. A specter, Leo? Can you elaborate? It devours things, Leo uttered, his voice a mere breath. It consumed my narratives. A shiver traced Dave's spine. He'd witnessed humanity at its worst, but this resonated on a different frequency. Narratives? You mean books? Leo shook his head with fierce energy. No, my own narratives. Inside my head. This specter, it feeds on them. And once it does, the world twists. Awful things arise. He squeezed his eyes shut, tears escaping to carve clean tracks on his grimy cheeks. I had to put an end to it. I needed to locate the sunstone. A knot formed in Dave's stomach. This wasn't mere neglect. This was something otherworldly. Something beyond his comprehension. He slid a tissue across the table. The sunstone? What is that, Leo? Accepting the tissue, Leo dabbed at his face. He looked directly at Dave, his gaze beseeching. It's the sole thing capable of vanquishing the specter. It's obscured. But I possess the knowledge of where to seek it. I simply required escape. They wouldn't comprehend. Dave rose abruptly, turning away. He needed a moment to collect himself. He walked to the window, gazing at the sprawling cityscape, attempting to reconcile what he was hearing with the grounded reality he knew. He raked a hand through his thinning hair. A specter that pilfers narratives. A sunstone. He shut his eyes, fighting back a surge of disquiet. He needed to project composure. He needed to remain clinical. Pivoting back to Leo, he manufactured a reassuring smile. All right, Leo, he stated gently. Tell me everything about this sunstone. A certainty, bone deep and unsettling, settled within him. This was no ordinary case. The Comet's secret officer Miller slid a carton of animal crackers across the scarred tabletop. Come on, Leo, you must be famished. The boy picked desultorily at the box, his lip quivering. He hadn't touched his juice either. Miller stifled a sigh. Another dead end. He shifted tactics. Your mom must be worried sick. Let's get you back to her. All right? Leo's head shot up, eyes wide. I can't go home. Not yet. Why not, sport? Miller's tone was gentle, coaxing. He leaned in, forearms resting on the table. Leo's small fingers knotted together in his lap. Because she's ill. He hesitated, then blurted, She's Captain Comet. Miller blinked, suppressing a snort. He'd heard some wild stories in his line of work, but this one took the cake. He schooled his features to neutrality. Captain Comet, huh? Yes. She used to soar through the sky, rescuing people. Invincible. Radiant. Now she's... Leo's voice fractured. Now she can barely stir from bed. It's like her light's fading. The officer's initial skepticism began to crumble. The boy was genuinely anguished. Fading how? Her life force. It's like her sparkle is dimming. She'd spin tales of daring escapades among the stars, battling intergalactic rogues, saving entire civilizations. Now she just sleeps. The doctors say it's some obscure malady. They haven't a clue what it is. He glanced up, his eyes shimmering with suppressed tears. But I know what can restore her. And what's that, Leo? Miller prompted softly. The Bloom of Everlight. Leo breathed, his voice alight with fervent conviction. It flourishes on Mount Cinder, a mystical flower. My mom used to tell me legends about it. She said it captures the essence of 1,000 suns. Can mend anything. Miller rubbed a weary hand across his balding pate. A magical bloom on a volcano? This kid was either lost in fantasy or possessed of incredible courage. Mount Cinder is a long way off, Leo, and perilous. I know, Leo asserted, lifting his chin with determination. But I have to try. My mom. She was a savior to everyone. Now it's my turn to be hers. The sheer sincerity in Leo's tone, the unwavering faith gleaming in his eyes, resonated deep within Miller. He pictured his own mother, frail and weakening in a nursing facility. He understood that aching helplessness, that desperate yearning to do something, anything to alleviate the pain. All right, Leo, Miller conceded, his voice thick with unshed emotion. Tell me everything. Paint me a picture of Captain Comet. Tell me about the Bloom of Everlight. Describe Mount Cinder. Tell me the whole story. He reached for the coffee pot. This was going to be a long night. And somehow Miller sensed it was also going to be a long journey. Tears and conviction. Leo's voice cracked as he finished the story of his little sister, Lily, trapped in the withered willow, her laughter slowly fading. He described the gnawing cold that emanated from the tree, the way Lily's bright, sunflower yellow dress had become dull and gray, mirroring the bark that held her captive. He spoke of the whispers he heard at night, the willow's cruel promises to keep Lily forever. Officer Miller, who'd been leaning forward, his elbows on his knees, straightened abruptly. The fluorescent lights of the precinct break room seemed to buzz a little louder. He felt a prickling behind his eyelids, a tightness in his chest that stole his breath. He'd seen things in his career, terrible things, but the raw, unwavering love radiating from this kid, the desperate hope clinging to his every word, it threatened to unravel him. Leo, he said, his voice thick. He cleared his throat. Give me a moment, okay? He stood, pushing back his chair with a scrape that echoed in the small room. He needed air, needed to feel the grit of the city under his boots, needed anything to ground him back in reality. He walked out of the break room, leaving Leo alone at the table, his small hands clasped tightly in his lap. Outside, the November air was sharp, biting at his exposed skin. Miller leaned against the brick wall of the precinct, the rough texture a small comfort. The city noises, usually a dull hum, seemed amplified. The screech of brakes, the distant wail of a siren, the muffled shouts of pedestrians. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and let it out slowly. He imagined Lily, trapped, her laughter fading like the last embers of a dying fire. He pictured Leo facing down whatever it was he was facing down, alone and armed with nothing but belief. A tear escaped, tracing a cold path down his cheek. He wiped it away roughly with the back of his hand. This wasn't a child neglect case. This was something else, something impossible, maybe, but he couldn't dismiss the genuine fear and love etched onto Leo's face. He remembered his own daughter, Sarah, her boundless imagination, her unwavering faith in the magic of the world. He would do anything for her. He opened his eyes, his gaze hardening. He wouldn't let Leo face this alone. He didn't know how, he didn't know what resources he could even begin to tap into, but he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he would help. He would move heaven and earth if necessary to get Lily back. Taking one last deep breath of the cold air, Officer Miller turned and walked back inside, his resolve as solid as the brick wall he'd just been leaning against. He found Leo exactly where he had left him, a small island of hope in the sterile break room. This time, Miller knew he wasn't just an officer of the law. He was an ally. The chief's dilemma, the stale coffee aroma in Chief Thompson's office, did little to calm Miller's nerves. He'd rehearsed his pitch a dozen times, but the words still felt flimsy against the chief's granite-like demeanor. So, this boy, Leo, claims what exactly? Thompson asked, leaning back in his creaking chair, the afternoon sun glinting off his silver hair. His gaze, sharp and unwavering, felt like an interrogation lamp. Miller swallowed. He says his parents were replaced by things, imitations, hollow shells. He hated how ridiculous it sounded, even to his own ears. Thompson's lips tightened. Replaced? Miller, we're talking about a runaway, not a science fiction convention. Neglect, maybe abuse? What did the social worker say? They haven't seen him yet, Chief. I wanted to talk to you first. It's not just what he said, it's how he said it. The absolute terror in his eyes. He wouldn't even go near a phone, said they used them to listen. Miller rubbed the back of his neck, feeling the weight of the boy's fear pressing down on him. Thompson sighed, a sound like air escaping a punctured tire. Miller, you're a good officer, a compassionate one. But sometimes that compassion blinds you. This kid is scared, probably traumatized. We find him a safe place, get him counseling. That's our job. But Chief, he's talking about things. Subtle things. The way his mother stopped humming in the kitchen. The way his father's eyes don't crinkle when he smiles anymore. He said they started eating this gray sludge for dinner. And they don't sleep. They just stand in the hallway at night. Miller's voice trembled slightly. He knew he was failing to convey the profound wrongness that emanated from Leo's story. Thompson steepled his fingers. Miller, with all due respect, that sounds like a child's overactive imagination fueled by a steady diet of late-night television. We deal with reality here. Miller stood straighter, the plea rising from deep within him. But what if, just what if, there's something to it? What if we dismiss him, label him as disturbed, and send him back to that? Chief, I've seen a lot of bad things in this job, but I've never seen a kid this genuinely scared. This convinced. He's not asking for much. Just someone to believe him. He met Thompson's gaze, his own unwavering now. He deserves that much, at least. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Thompson stared out the window, his face unreadable. The only sound was the rhythmic tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the corner. Finally, he turned back, his expression softened, a flicker of something akin to empathy in his eyes. All right, Miller, he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. All right, let's look into this. Discreetly. No official investigation, no paperwork just yet. But I'll authorize a visit to the boy's house. Undercover, just you and me. We'll see what's really going on there. But Miller, he added, his voice hardening again. If this turns out to be a wild goose chase, you're buying the coffee for the next month. Operation Magic Flower. Chief Thompson steepled his fingers, the overhead fluorescent lights reflecting harshly off his bald head. A magic flower, Maxwell? You're asking me to authorize a nature hike to a dormant volcano, based on a child's belief in a magic flower that can cure his mother. Officer Miller shifted uncomfortably. He'd laid out the facts as gently as possible, highlighting Leo's unwavering conviction and the desperation etched on the boy's face. He'd even carefully omitted the part about the talking raven. Chief, I understand your skepticism, but look at the bigger picture. The kid's mother is sick, really sick, and he believes this flower can help. A supervised hike with experienced officers is hardly a drain on resources. We could frame it as a training exercise. Search and rescue, wilderness survival. Thompson sighed, the air escaping his lips like a deflating tire. Fine, but this is off the books, Miller. No official records. No press. If this gets out, if anyone finds out we're chasing fairy tales on taxpayer dollars, your badge is on the line. He jabbed a thick finger at Miller. And Maxwell's? Well, let's just hope he finds his damn flower. The precinct hummed with a strange, muted energy the next morning. Gone were the usual boisterous jokes and clattering keyboards. Instead, a hushed efficiency permeated the air. Officer Ramirez, a wiry woman with a permanent squint, meticulously checked the first aid kit. Officer Jones, usually glued to his desk, sharpened his machete with surprising focus. Miller, meanwhile, briefed the team, emphasizing the need for discretion and the importance of keeping Leo safe. Think of this as a missing person case, he said, his voice low. Our missing person is a kid with a lot of hope and a desperate need to believe. Leo, oblivious to the undercurrent of official unease, bounced on the balls of his feet with barely contained excitement. He wore his best hiking boots, a hand-me-down from his grandfather, and a bright yellow raincoat that was several sizes too big. A small, worn backpack, containing a drawing of the magic flower and a half-eaten apple, hung from his shoulders. His eyes, usually shadowed with worry, sparkled with anticipation. "Are we going to find it, Officer Miller? Are we really?" he asked, his voice a breathless whisper. Miller knelt, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. "We're going to try our best, Leo. That's all I can promise. We're going to climb that mountain and we're going to look for that flower." He paused, meeting Leo's hopeful gaze. "And even if we don't find it, we'll come back knowing we did everything we could." As the convoy of unmarked vehicles pulled away from the precinct, heading towards the looming silhouette of Mount Cinder, Leo pressed his face against the window. The rising sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of something other than despair. It wasn't just hope. It was a fragile, burgeoning belief that maybe, just maybe, magic was real. A city awakens dawn unfurled, painting the sky in shades of rose and violet, when the bulletin arrived. A blurred image of Leo, his worn satchel his only companion, flashed on the screen outside the precinct. On location, a reporter, voice hushed, detailed Operation Magic Flower, a boy's desperate gamble to heal his mother. "Initially, authorities considered him a runaway," she explained, her tone laced with concern. "However, Leo Maxwell, all of 9 years old, and his quest for a mythical bloom said to hold curative powers, has touched everyone involved. The department, deeply affected by his devotion, is now backing his mission." Officer Miller, nursing lukewarm coffee, watched from the break room, his eyes bloodshot. He grimaced at the reporter's mangled pronunciation of Aiden, but felt a swell of sympathy as she recounted Leo's courage. He'd spent hours chasing the magic flower down rabbit holes of folklore and outlandish artwork. Yet, staring at Leo's face on the monitor, he found himself unable to dismiss the boy's fervent belief. The station's switchboard exploded. Donations flooded in crumpled bills in stamped envelopes, checks from the local bakery, even a delicate gold charm sent anonymously with a note for her swift recovery. The lobby became a chaotic relief center, overflowing with plush animals, heartfelt cards, and cartons of tissues. A florist dispatched a van bursting with sunflowers, their sunny faces a defiant contrast to the atmosphere of worry. A confectioner delivered a cake shaped like a blossoming flower, its sugary petals dusted with shimmer. Volunteers seemed to materialize from the ether, offering to catalog gifts, man the phones, and even chauffeur Leo wherever his quest led. News crews swarmed the Maxwell home, their lenses documenting its humble condition and the quiet grace of Mrs. Maxwell, who sat by the window, a faint, hopeful smile gracing her lips. Overwhelmed, Leo gripped her hand. "They believe in the magic flower, Mama," he murmured, his voice thick. "They believe in us both." That night, a vigil glowed outside the hospital where Mrs. Maxwell was under care. Hundreds convened, their faces lit by the dancing flames, their voices rising in a unified prayer for a miracle. Officer Miller stood at the periphery, watching Leo release a lone white dove into the inky expanse. The city, once oblivious, now throbbed with a singular pulse, driven by a child's unwavering love and the whisper of hope. The ascent of Mount Cinder, the black sand crunched under their boots, a morbid soundtrack to their climb. Mount Cinder lived up to its name. Jagged obsidian cliffs clawed at the sky, and the air tasted of ash and something acrid, like burnt metal. The wind, a constant, mournful howl, whipped around them, threatening to tear them from the precarious ledges. "Are you sure about this, kid?" Officer Miller asked, his voice strained against the wind. He adjusted the strap of his pack, the weight of the extra supplies digging into his shoulder. "This looks unstable." Leo, despite the biting wind reddening his cheeks, beamed. "Absolutely. My mother always said the mountain tests those who seek its secrets. It wouldn't just hand them over, would it?" He pointed to a seemingly impassable wall of rock. See that formation? She called it the sleeping dragon's tooth. The path is just beyond. Miller squinted, seeing only a sheer, unforgiving surface. I don't see any path, Leo. That's because it's hidden, Leo said, his eyes dancing with excitement. He approached the rock face, running his hand along the cold, rough surface. She said to look for the dragon's tear, a small crevice that only appears when the wind whispers the right name. Miller watched, skeptical but willing to indulge the boy, for now. The climb had already been treacherous, loose scree sliding away under each step. He checked the sky, the perpetually overcast sky. He couldn't tell if it was getting darker, or if it was simply the mountain's oppressive atmosphere. Leo pressed his ear against the rock, listening intently. The wind shrieked, a cacophony of sound, but Leo seemed to filter it out. After a moment, his face lit up. Aha! I think I heard it. She said the mountain's true name is Ignis, and when you say it with respect, the tear appears. He took a deep breath and whispered, Ignis. For a moment, nothing happened. Miller was about to voice his doubts when a barely perceptible shift occurred. A thin crack, no wider than a finger, snaked its way up the rock face, widening slightly as it climbed. Incredible, Miller breathed, momentarily forgetting his skepticism. The crack widened further, revealing a narrow passage carved into the rock. It was barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through, but it was undeniably a path. Leo grinned, his eyes shining with triumph. See? I told you. My mother's stories always come true. He turned to face Miller, his expression suddenly serious. But she also said that the path tests your courage. There are illusions, she called them. Things that will try to scare you away from the truth. Miller placed a hand on Leo's shoulder, his grip firm but gentle. We'll face them together, Leo, whatever they are. He looked at the narrow passage, a sliver of darkness beckoning them forward. Lead the way. Hope blooms. The air in the hidden grotto hummed with a palpable energy. Water trickled down moss-covered rocks, feeding a small pool where the source of the magic resided. A single luminous flower. Its petals, the color of amethyst and fire, pulsed with a soft, internal light, casting dancing shadows on the cavern walls. Leo gasped, the air catching in his throat. This was it. Hope, blooming in a forgotten corner of the world. It's beautiful, he whispered, afraid to break the spell. Officer Miller, ever practical, approached cautiously. We need to be careful. We don't know what kind of properties it has. He pulled a small, glass vial from his pocket, lined with soft velvet. This should keep it safe on the journey back. Retrieving the flower proved surprisingly easy. It detached from its stem with a gentle tug, as if eager to fulfill its purpose. The moment it was free, the glow intensified, bathing the grotto in an ethereal light before slowly dimming as Miller carefully placed it within the vial. The return journey was a blur of anxious anticipation. Leo couldn't stop picturing his mother, her pale face etched with weariness. He clutched the vial to his chest, as if willing the flower's healing power to reach her. Back in Metropolis Springs, a crowd had gathered outside Leo's apartment building, a silent vigil of support. Mrs. Rodriguez rushed forward as they arrived, her eyes red-rimmed but hopeful. Leo Mijo, you found it. He nodded, his voice thick with emotion. I think so. Upstairs, the air in their small apartment was heavy with the scent of illness. Leo's mother lay in bed, her breathing shallow. He knelt beside her, gently stroking her hair. Mama, I brought you something. Miller carefully brewed a tea, steeping a single petal of the glowing flower in the hot water. The liquid shimmered with an otherworldly luminescence. He strained it into a cup and offered it to Leo's mother. She drank slowly, her eyes closed. A faint flush began to creep back into her cheeks. Leo held his breath, every nerve on high alert. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then a soft cough. Leo's mother opened her eyes, and a spark of recognition flickered within them. Leo? She whispered, her voice raspy but stronger. "Is that you?" He squeezed her hand, tears streaming down his face. "It's me, Mama. I'm here." Over the next few hours, a remarkable transformation occurred. Leo's mother sat up, ate a small meal, and even managed a weak smile. The change was undeniable, a testament to the flower's magic and the power of hope. News of the miraculous recovery spread like wildfire. The crowd outside erupted in cheers, celebrating not just Leo's bravery, but the community's unwavering kindness. Officer Miller found himself engulfed in grateful hugs and handshakes. The city felt lighter, infused with a renewed sense of optimism. In Metropolis Springs, hope had bloomed.